Well, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Haslet City Council for Monday, February 1st. Call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. We do have a quorum present. First off, I want to do just a little housekeeping. I want to read several items with regard to virtual meeting best practices. So for those of you that might be on the call for the first time, I'd like for you to try to adhere to these to the best of your ability. 2A, please be sure that your microphone is muted when you first join the meeting, as well as when you are not speaking. This cuts down on background noise and feedback for everyone. 2B, participants should be sure that they are recognized by the meeting chair to speak and state their name and address prior to speaking. And 2C, during the video conference and teleconference meetings, the purpose of the chat function is to have a list for the chairperson to recognize speakers and for communicating technical difficulties or malfunctions. The chat is not for conversations during official meetings. As far as, well, let's just stop right there. Mayor Pro Tem, do you mind leading us in a prayer, please?
Sure, I'd be glad to. Father, thank you for the freedom we enjoy tonight as we come together to assess the items before us. We ask that you grant us the wisdom to act in the best interest of all the citizens of Haslet. We also ask for your continued protection for our city staff, our first responders, our teachers, and our residents as we cope with the COVID-19 pandemic that risks the health of so many of us. We also ask for your blessings as we move forward from tonight's meeting. Amen.
Amen. If y'all would please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Citizens' participation and comments. I know we have several folks who wish to speak to specific agenda items down in the 9A, 9B, and so on. If there's anyone who wishes to go ahead and speak right now, I'll give you that opportunity. Otherwise, you will be given an opportunity to speak when that agenda item is called. So is there anyone that wishes to address the council at this time? Bear with me a second. I think I'm losing my setup. Okay, I'm back with you. Sorry about that. So hearing none, I'll go on to the next item. Items of community interest, I have several to cover here. 5A, Haslet Parks officially reopened today, February 1st. A virtual grand reopening is available for viewing on the city's YouTube channel, website, and social media accounts. 5B, the last day to file an application for a place on the May 1, 2021 general election ballot is Friday, February the 12th by 5 p.m. The office of mayor, council member place 2, and council member place 4 will be on the ballot. As of the agenda publication, incumbents Mayor Golden and council member Patricia Hilborn have filed to be on the ballot, and I was informed this afternoon that incumbent Harold Williams has also filed. So all the incumbents have filed as of today. 5C, quarterly brush drop-off day is Saturday, February 13th from 8 a.m. to 12 noon behind the fire station. 5D, Haslet City offices and the library will be closed on February 15th in observance of President's Day holiday. Lastly, a letter of recognition regarding the Haslet Public Library from the Northwest Independent School Superintendent, Ryder Warren. And I'd like to read that letter. Dear Mrs. Thompson and Haslet Public Library, I wanted to thank you for your support of our students, district, and community. The Northwest ISD community is blessed with great support, but you stand out by far. COVID-19 has presented many challenges for our school district and students. and our Council of PTAs was especially concerned with how to honor and recognize our PTA Reflections artists. Thank you so much for being willing to showcase our students' work and talent. I greatly appreciate that you allowed your library to be filled with the children's artwork so their efforts and success could be celebrated. Without your help, I'm not sure how we would have recognized and displayed the 171 PTA Reflections entries for our students and families to enjoy. I know the Haslet Public Library has appropriately received lots of recognition and is a welcoming source of information, books, and programs for many of our families. It's no wonder as you and your library staff go above and beyond. I especially want to thank you for always supporting the student summer reading by making books on the Northwest ISD summer reading lists available. From providing drop-off services so your patrons could check out books throughout the COVID pandemic, to providing our office access to your historical records while we researched Haslet schools, your work and support is appreciated. Thank you for making a difference in our community and the lives of our children in Haslet and beyond. You are a great neighbor and supporter of public education, but even more so, you are helping to build up our children and their love of reading and learning. Thank you for supporting Northwest ISD and our students. Sincerely, Ryder Warren, ED, Dr. Superintendent of Schools. I wanted to read that so that everybody on the call would appreciate the fact that one of our partners is recognizing our library and our staff for the contributions to the community. I think those of us who live here realize that, but I thought that was worth trying to read and cover. So congratulations, Barbara, and your entire staff. I'd be happy to entertain you if you wanted to say a few words. If not, I certainly understand. Shaking your head no. Okay. 6, staff reports to update on active items, projects, and event recap. 6A, update on the coronavirus COVID-19 issues.
This will be Chief Mays and Rob Alma.
All righty. Good morning, Mayor and Council. We are still in phase 2 of opening Haslet with no signs of changing until June 1st, 2021. At the last council meeting, council voted to not hold any city-sponsored events before August 1st of 2021. Again, City Hall, court window, and library is open to the public from 10 A to 3 P, Monday through Friday. In-person meetings are still discouraged, but can occur by appointment. We are not opening the community center up to programs, exercise classes, or for the senior adults at this point. Public Works staff continues the staggered stop times. And as you mentioned earlier, Mayor, starting today, the playgrounds and park restrooms were open to the public. 20 COVID caution signs were ordered several weeks ago, but COVID has had that delivery process slowed down. So David Rogers advised they're thinking hopefully the middle of the week they can get these in and installed throughout all of the parks and the baseball fields. David also reported there was a lot of activity in the park today with people stating they had received that message and were excited to come out and try the new facilities. All right. Fire department members have begun receiving their second vaccine shot. I have received mine. I had no issues, but several of them stated that they ran fever and had body aches for several days, but are all fine now. Recently, we had a volunteer firefighter who needed a place to stay during a medical event, and he would also be out of work for several weeks with no pay. It excites me to say that the members of the department, our support group, pulled money together along with an anonymous donation to rent a room at the Holiday Inn at Golden Triangle on I-35 for 5 nights and cover his upcoming expenses. Little backstory, the Holiday Inn sales manager had reached out to me a couple weeks ago, said they were new to the area and wanted to let me know if we ever had any needs to call her. 2 weeks later, I called her, and she did everything quickly and efficiently to get us a room. He had to stay 5 nights. They made sure that he was checked every day. They brought him food and just took great care of him. And I just really want to acknowledge and thank the Holiday Inn and all the people that help pull together during this time of hard times. All right. Again, I don't have much update here or change. Citizens wanting the vaccine should contact Tarrant County Public Health or pre-register at tarrantcounty.com/COVID shot to see if they qualify for the vaccination. Mayor, if you or Mr. Quinn, if you know anything, please help me here. I've been gone for a little bit. It's unclear to me at this point when the public will receive the vaccine. However, my wife and several other educators in the 76052 zip code did receive notice to get their shot, and they all went on Saturday. So I'm not for sure what is triggering the next level. Mayor or Jim, do y'all get any updates? Okay. All right. I'm almost done. This is Rob. It's your turn. You got any reports on the open meeting or any other thing?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I would just remind you the governor's last extension order was issued on January 5th, continuing to extend the disaster declaration. And so every 30 days, he's been acting to renew that. So I have on my calendar to look for his next action on February 4th. And I will update you. I would expect that he will again continue the disaster declaration, and I'll send an email copy of that notifying y'all that has occurred. So as long as the disaster declaration gets extended, then the ability to continue to meet remotely will also be extended. That's all I have. Happy to try and address any questions you might have.
Anyone have any questions for Kurt or for Rob or any comments you want to make? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to the next item. Discussion item 7A, discuss and consider establishing a street name change policy and/or procedures and provide staff direction.
Yes, I received an email in December from Mr. Stephen Helling, who indicated that he has a business on Blue Mountain Road, and everyone seems to be confused where he's located at. And he requested that the city consider a name change. What we're doing tonight is considering if we want to adopt a policy and procedure for changing the name of the city street. We're not discussing closing or renaming any street. So I think Rob's done some research on this. I think he can answer some questions around what other cities' policy has. You can either choose to approve a policy and procedure, have staff develop a one, or choose not to. So it did come from a resident business on Blue Mountain Road. So we're here this evening to decide whether you want a policy or procedure to even rename it. Rob, you want to take it on?
Sure, Jim, that was a great lead in. Obviously, council, the street names, the streets in your city are subject to the council's control, including the names. So the council has the authority to rename streets. Obviously, when you do that, there's a large impact to consider on businesses and residents on how that impacts them. A lot of cities adopt policies to lay out how that will be considered. If somebody requests it, some cities require public hearings, and that people who are affected or who might be affected by the name change all get notice of that, so that can be discussed and considered before a decision is made. In looking back through Haslet's records in my computer, I don't see that we've undertaken a name change, at least recently. But we do have a fee in our fee schedule for a street name change, a $500 street name change fee. But we don't have a policy adopted that says how we are going to consider that and what all we do to consider a street name change. And I think that's what Jim was referencing. I found some sample guidelines or policies from other cities that are included in the packet. And if you all feel like that's something we need to look into, as Jim said, I think that would be a reasonable step in this direction, is to look at a policy or some guidelines on how you would consider those in the future, so that that's in place as far as what kind of structure and procedure you want to follow.
Comments, anyone? Thoughts?
Gary Halsey has a comment, Mayor, if you would so entertain.
Go ahead, sir.
I just want to, Blue Mound Hill, we've been talking in the past about historical items. Blue Mound is historical from the reference point. Blue Mound, the actual Blue Mound Hill is in city limits of Haslet on the corner of Blue Mound and 156. You know, just a little bit of the background of it. It is a hill that that in the past the cowboys would go up on top to watch when and see when cattle drives would come in off the Chisholm Trail. Also, it was used by Indians to view troop movement in and out of the Fort Worth. I think I'd rather keep Blue Mound Hill as the road, or Blue Mound Road as the name of it. I can understand a gentleman's desire to name a street after his business, but what if we change 156 to Froth Lane?
Thank you, Mr. Halsey, but I believe the item is really to discuss whether or not we want to have a policy or procedure for changing the name. This is not an agenda item upon which we're going to discuss changing the name of Blue Mound Road. It's more a big picture perspective, the way I understand it. Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what we're really supposed to be discussing here is whether or not we want a policy to change the name should we ever want to address the issue.
Yeah, I think that's right, Mayor. I think Mr. Quinn kind of basically said the initiation for this came from a request from a gentleman that was just referenced. But what I heard Mr. Quinn say is that really wasn't even to be discussed. We're going to take the overhead view and figure out what kind of policy or procedure that you want, if anything, to address street name changes. That's my understanding.
This is the mayor. I see no problem or no issue with having a policy. It sounds like we have 4 or 5 that we could use, or Rob could use, to come up with a suggested policy. I think in the event that we were ever to consider it in the future, it would be nice to have the guidelines already established. So from that standpoint, although it might cost us a couple dollars for the legal advice, I think it probably wouldn't hurt for us to at least have the policy. That would be my thought.
This is Councilmember Morrow. Looking at the policy, I agree with you, Mayor. Looking at the policies, I did like, I believe it was Greenville's, that said 75% of owners abutting the subject street will kind of have that determination, because it does affect more than one person. So I did like that piece of information in Greenville's. A lot of them had good stuff I liked, but I just remember particularly liking that it wasn't just affecting more than one person. They had to have 75% of all the owners be a part of it.
And I think we do have some businesses on that road, and then there's expense involved with, as was mentioned in the information provided, to have to cover, changing letterheads and all those things, and I think we would want the businesses to incur that. And is that a fair way for that to move forward? But so is there anyone who has an issue or has a problem if we go ahead and ask the attorney to come up with a recommendation on that policy?
Mayor, this is Councilmember Kilborn. I'm sorry, I may be getting some feedback. Maybe some mics are on. I agree. Let's have a policy, but I think it should be a very careful procedure. I think it needs to be more than just based on the number of people who might want it or not want it, because changing a road, as Mr. Halsey pointed out, most of the roads, our names are old names, and we want to be very careful that we make the decision that's best for the city and not just for the person requesting it. So I noticed one of the samples had that, like, if 100% of the people on that road wanted it, it wouldn't need a public hearing, but if a certain percentage didn't, then it would also require a public hearing. I don't know. I'm not ready to sign off on that. I'm just saying I think it should be a kind of a process that's a thoughtful process.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I had when thinking about this, I wondered if like in the procedure would address roads such as Blue Mountain Road East. It's not totally in Haslet. Part of it's county responsibility. So would a city like Haslet have the legal authority to change a name of a road that's not all within Haslet? Also, it continues on in Fort Worth jurisdiction all the way to 287, and then on the opposite side, it changes again to a different name. That would even lead to more confusion, I think. But anyway, about the question of dual jurisdiction, how would we address that?
Mayor Pro Tem, this is Rob Alabon. It's an excellent point. I think that particularly in those instances, well, to answer your question directly, no, we only have authority over the city, over the roads that are within the city's jurisdiction. So to the extent you have the authority to rename the street that's in your city, not beyond that limit. So in the case of a road that goes multi-jurisdictional, that presents a big problem. So that may be a factor to consider, like in Blue Mountain situation, that you might not want to change that name for that very reason. But the policy, would be a broad policy to cover instances where there's a request to change the name in the city, or as you saw in some of those other guidelines, there's been lots of cities and movements to give a honorarium or a name change to honor, somebody and that kind of thing, and whether or not the policies can address those things or not. Something, y'all can tell me whether to include any of that, this or not.
So just one more point on that. Maybe one of the steps in the policy is to determine whether we even have the authority to change the name, like maybe step one.
If you follow McElroy, it becomes Western Center, then it becomes Chief Sparger, and yeah, that is a little bit of craziness.
Mayor Golden, this is Diana. I did want to note that we did have a citizen sign up also that wanted to address council about this, Mr. Ritchie.
Go ahead, Pat.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree that the council probably needs to look into this. I think as far as what Warren Robb was talking about, this request came from an ETJ person. Okay, they're really not in the city limits, so I understand they're in the ETJ. So we need to figure out whether this policy is going to work on ETJ also, besides city limits. I mean, the limits are the limits, but some of our cities in the ETJ, for instance, Maxwell Circle. Would we be able to change the name of Maxwell Circle when it's in the ETJ?
My thought would be, and I think Warren touched on this, if there's dual jurisdiction on parts of the road, then obviously there'd have to be a partnership between the city of Haslet and whoever we're partnering with the road to make sure that both parties were okay with the idea. I'm obviously not the legal expert here, but I would think that it's possible if you had everybody that's that has the responsibility for the road was in agreement. But again, that's way down the road. I think we could cover that in the policy to at least say that if it had a dual ownership, that we would certainly have to talk to our partners.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I do want to say that I support Gary Hulsey on this, that I don't want to change the name on Blue Mountain Road. Thank you.
couple of us haven't spoken. It sounds like we're okay with at least discussing a policy. Does anyone have any specific guidelines that you'd like to offer to Rob for him to consider when he's putting together the policy? I think Warren Rob has brought up a good point with regard to the dual ownership. Any other items that anybody has?
I do like the idea of the ability to possibly honor someone with a road change. But even if we did that, I think we would still need the buy-in by the people whose lives it's going to affect. I mean, look at Gamble Road. We're obviously honoring Doc Gamble with that. I don't know when that happened, but
Okay, if everybody's comfortable with this, Rob, do you feel like you have enough to at least start on it?
Yes, sir. I'll get started on a policy and bring it back for whatever the city administrator decides, but bring it back for a work session or for action or whatever is appropriate. But I have enough to get started. There's a lot of, I appreciate the input everybody's given, made notes on that, and I'll make sure that I kind of address those things. And the rest, I'll try to use maybe I'll include some alternate language for y'all to consider in there. Once I get into it, I'll try and figure out what the best approach to take is and get y'all something you can start working on.
Thank you, sir. All right, let's move on. Number 8, the consent agenda. The only item is 8A, approval of the regular city council meeting minutes for January the 18th, 2021. Anybody have any corrections, comments, additions to the minutes? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mayor Pro Tem, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
This is Clark, I second.
Jessica Clark seconds. Any further discussion? Let's do a roll call vote. Warren Robb,
Aye.
Harold Williams, Harold, did we lose you?
Is my speaker on now?
Now it is, yes, sir.
Okay, I abstained because I missed the last 2 meetings.
Okay. Jessica Clark,
Aye.
Tricia Hilborn,
aye.
Tanya Morrow.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0, 1 abstention. 9, public hearing, ordinances, resolutions, and action items. 9A. This is an item continued from December 14th, 2020. Discuss, consider, and act upon a potential donation of the chapel building located in Old Town Haslet. I know we have, to my knowledge, I don't think there's anything additional that staff has to report with regard to this item. Is that correct, Jim?
That's correct, Mayor.
Okay.
There is a new report in the packet.
Okay. Somebody
There
want to
isn't
cover that report then?
Oh, you meant the cost analysis. We have nothing new on that. Yeah, if I think in the packet, there was some uses that were requested for the chapel building by Councilor Hilborn and staff prepared.
Okay. I'd like to open this up for any citizens who wish to comment on this particular agenda item. If you would please just identify yourself and your address, and then you'll have the floor for no more than 3 minutes. It's going to be kind of hard. I can't see raised hands, so, or maybe I can if you're on camera. So whoever wants to try to start, and I'll recognize you.
Well, this is Gary Halsey, Mayor, 2003 FM 156, Haslet, Texas. I'll go when you give me permission.
Go ahead, sir.
What I have commented on this in the past, and I think you all know my feelings about it. We should not be doing this. You know, when as mayor, it's the last open meeting that we had, you made the comment when someone asked about roads and their neighborhood roads, and you stated that we just did not have enough money to do all the road work that we need. And here it is, we're entertaining 500,000, and I heard that we discovered that the steeple and roof needs more additional repair, which puts us up a higher price tag than 500,000 on 1,800 square foot building that would have to be totally gutted, asbestos removed, all the exterior removed, and so what we end up is a frame. The building is not historically significant. It's old, I grant you that, but it's not historically significant nor architecturally significant. There's been no professional opinion on either of those items. I think it's time that we stand up and exercise. I understand there's a few folks that might want it, but exercise some financial responsibility and stewardship here. And if we got an extra 500,000, spend it where it's needed, not on a want. We had no identified use, such as restrooms in a ballpark or a visitor center or a library extension. This just does not make any sense to us who pay these bills. And I'll let the remainder of my time go. Please vote no, Council.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak?
Yes, my name is Kitty Wirtz, and I and my husband live at 205 Thistle Drive, and I'd like to address council. I sent a letter to all the council members requesting this project be killed. I feel it's way too expensive for our city to even be considering this project. It's over $500,000. I don't think our city has that kind of money to spend, especially when we don't even have a defined use for this facility. Like Mr. Holsey said, it's going to have to be rebuilt. We're just getting a frame, and we're having to put $500,000 plus into this project when there are so many other things our city has to contend with on our future spend plan. Our roads need work. We've been told we don't have enough money to take care of our roads. I think crime is increasing in the area, and we may need more sheriff patrol. And I challenge the council to tell me if I'm wrong with that statement. I think there's quite a number of other projects that are more important to the city of Haslet and to the citizens of Haslet. A lot of my friends have said that they don't understand why we're even considering this project. It sounds like it's some type of pet project, and we cannot afford it. We aren't even looking at what future cost might be coming up once we do put it in place. So it's not just a spend and be done. There's more things to consider here. And there's plenty of other more important, more pressing things. I think if it was used as a facility to augment our library and have community meetings in, that it would be very sparingly used, maybe by 10% of our citizens. How can the spend of $500,000 be justified in this project? I respectfully asked that the council members consider that and vote this project down. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Pat.
Yes, I concur with what I've heard so far from the other two people.
Just for the record, sir, do you mind stating your
Pat
name?
Ritchie, yeah, 404 Blue Mountain Road East, Haslet, Texas, the famous road that runs through east-west of Haslet. I would like to make sure that people understand that I've read this stuff, and maybe I missed it. I was sitting here trying to read it, but I haven't heard a good use for this $500,000 building, this free $500,000 building. Okay. So anything, it's like my daddy always told me, nothing's ever free. And so $500,000 is a lot of money to spend on an old building. I think you could probably build the building brand new for $500,000. I think I could anyway. I just think it's a bad idea at this point in time. You know, we're fighting COVID. We're fighting. We can't even get together. We have to meet. You know, like this. Maybe we ought to spend $500,000 on our internet infrastructure so we can, you know, make sure it stays up. I'm not opposed to doing things in the park. I'm not opposed to building. You know, I would love to see us build a gymnasium over there, an indoor. Put some offices in it, and hire a full-time Parks and Recreation director and let him take over and turn some of these things that we do to help out people in the park into a revenue stream, such as baseball or volleyball or basketball. You know, if we had a gymnasium, we could run all those leagues and turn them into a revenue stream rather than just an expense stream. So, you know, I would much rather see the money go that way than I had to see it go for this old building that really has no use for me. Thank you.
Anyone else? Diana, if we didn't have anybody else who wished to speak, I do think that you have a couple of comments that were requested to be read into the minutes.
Yes, sir. The first one is from Kathy Brandon, 213 Bain Road. She says, "Dear Mayor and council members, with regard to the chapel building, I request this opportunity be declined. As a longtime resident and taxpayer in the city, I feel this would be an unnecessary waste of city funds. The cost to remove and transfer the building to city property, then bring it up to code in order to meet current standards so that the building would be in a usable state is a cost I don't feel is warranted. This is not in the best interest of the city or its residents, and request this gift be declined. There are many more projects worthy of these funds which would truly benefit the citizens." Second is Lisa Day, 401 Bent Tree Lane. She wrote this and asked that it be read into the record. Councilwoman Morrow, I heard that there is talk about purchasing the Northgate Church Chapel. This would be so beneficial to enriching our community. The opportunity for groups of all kinds and ages to utilize this historical building can bring more people together and further establish the hometown feel that Haslet is known for. Quilt clubs, mother-daughter craft nights, senior citizen game night, etc. can all use this space and put life back into a building that has served our city well for many, many years. The investment that the city of Haslet would put into the project initially could easily be recouped through the judicial use of income the city gets from sites such as the new hotel and other establishments. This is a great opportunity that fits the vision of the city to enrich the lives of the residents. Thank you for taking the time to hear my opinion on why the council should consider voting yes on this issue. If possible, I would like to have this read into the record at the next council meeting when the deliberations for this are being discussed. And then the next one is from Cindy Laird, 219 Main Street. She says, "First, thank you, Haslet City Council, for your consideration of taking possession of the chapel and keeping it in Haslet. I could list 100 sentimental reasons that I personally would like to keep the chapel in Haslet, but I understand that cannot be a deciding factor. As a longtime resident of Haslet, I have seen many changes over the years, some great and some, well, not so great. Let me just say I may be the only one grateful for the road closing on Haslet Killer Road and John Day. I will enjoy the peaceful quiet of no big trucks scrambling up and down Main Street and the many, many cars. I truly feel moving the chapel to a place very near or into Community Park would benefit the city and its residents. It primarily would give us a second location to meet, considering the community center in Haslet is the only site available at this time. There are times when the community center is not enough. Meetings having to be scheduled around other meetings and weekly activities being canceled to make accommodations for more meetings. The Haslet Library especially could benefit from a second location for many of their activities. I think the general public could certainly benefit with family gatherings, anniversaries. Also, it would be a great facility for educational classes for seniors, youth, and all of you in between. Painting, quilting, reading classes, and book clubs, to name a few. Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts could also make use of the facility, as well as inviting the area schools to have many concerts and plays. These would all be positive ways to serve the community. The price of the project is no small consideration. The $500,000 price tag is not an easy task. I think council was wise to label it Life Project for fiscal years 2021, 2022. Not only is it accurate calling it a life project contributing to the betterment of the community, but because payment of these funds can be split between both years and not all out of one budget. Also, if timed correctly, a re-grand opening could be scheduled to celebrate the 100 years for the chapel. The chapel is currently 98 years old. You do the math. In 2 years, we all hope we can gather together for a celebration. Addressing the age of the building, built in 1923, I can personally attest to the quality and craftsmanship of old buildings. My own home was built sometime in the 1940s when 2x4s were actually 2 inches by 4 inches. I would compare my home to nearly any new construction today, and it may not have all the bells and whistles, but the quality and structure would be decidedly better in my home. After the compliance and updates to the chapel, it could stand for another 100 years. Its legacy would be here long after we are all gone. Personally, I'm tired of seeing the older homes in Haslet brought up and torn down. I know how expensive it is to remodel an old structure. I'm sure some could not be saved. There was no choice. Just because something is old doesn't mean it has to be torn down, demolished, and it doesn't mean it can have no purpose. You, Haslet City Council, have the choice. Your commitment to maintaining a country feel in the area would be supported by accepting this challenge to preserve the chapel. As a Haslet Park Board member, I can attest to the reputation of Haslet as being family-oriented and focused on community enrichment. I think saving the chapel would continue this legacy and be a proud addition to the city of Haslet. Okay, and we have one more.
Is there a 3-minute time limit, Mayor? That's all I got. 3-minute time limit, that's all I got.
Yes, there is. This is another one received. This one is from Lisa McLeod of 313 Schreiber Drive. This coming Monday at 7 p.m., the City Council will consider the proposed donation of the former wooden chapel at Northgate Church, former First Baptist of Haslet. The church wants to donate the property to avoid the expenses of tearing it down and asbestos removal. The documents presented to the council say that it could cost over $500,000 to renovate, move, do asbestos removal, abatement, remodel, bring up to code, and comply with the American Disabilities Act. The city doesn't even have a definitive plan for the use of this building. It's been proposed to use this building as a visitor center. What is there to see here? It has been proposed to use for events and conferences as an extension of the city library. The city has a community center that shares a parking lot with the library. Events and conferences can be held in the existing community center. If this has been proposed, it has been proposed to use as restrooms at the ballparks behind the fire station. Restrooms may be needed, but if cinder block restrooms are good enough for our city park, then they are good enough for the ballpark area that is not used year-round like the park. In my opinion, this is a waste of city money that can be used elsewhere. It would be irresponsible use of taxpayer money, fiscally irresponsible. The mayor in the last council meeting said the city doesn't have the money to do all the roads that need to be done. $500,000 would help, or it could help by using real dirt to backfill into residents' yards after road construction instead of using crushed up asphalt, which is an eyesore preventing grass from growing and is a danger to homeowners when mowing or trimming and having rocks thrown up. Another idea is tennis courts. The agenda item tonight talks about multi-use courts but does not address tennis courts. I would propose tennis courts and other activities in the park to promote wellness in our citizens. And Mayor Golden, the remainder of her letter is about another item on the agenda. And so would you like me to wait until that item?
Yes, ma'am. Why don't we do that? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And that's the last one that I had.
Okay, council, over to you.
Okay, this is Councilmember Hilburn. I'd love to talk about this project. I think there's four things I'd like to mention about it: stewardship, history, present and future, and opportunity. And yes, City Council is responsible for the stewardship of the funds the city procures and expends. And we take it very seriously. We have a very conservative budget, always have been. We have great financial experts keeping us in that conservative path. I also believe that the City Council has a responsibility of stewardship for the city's history and its future. So under the heading of history, let's talk about this building. One of the letters that Mrs. Buchanan read describes the history of this building and the connection it has with Haslet's past. The fact that it still stands on Main Street today shows what that connection is. It represents Haslet's rural past, something that many citizens want to hang on a piece of. And this is an opportunity to do that, to highlight part of Haslet's history. It's appropriate to save this building as part of the stewardship that this council holds to its city. Under present and future, I'd like to say that restoring this building gives us an opportunity to offer more activities for our residents. And we actually serve a larger community than just our city residents in our library and parks. We've always emphasized how we are available to a larger community, not just the city. And with that, I'd like to read the report that our Parks Director and our Library Director provided as possible actual uses for this building, because there seems to be some misunderstanding that hasn't been provided. The Parks Department gave a list of premium vendor space for events, additional storage for Christmas decorations, choir space for Christmas in the park, office space for a possible future position in the parks superintendent / special event coordinator, and additional space for yoga and Tai Chi. The library director provided a list of special events that could be held there: summer reading program, weekly story time, family events, adult events, in other words, events that are tailored toward adult readers, teen events, book clubs, author signings, and the consortium task force large group meetings, which is something that as a member of the Regional Library Consortium, I assume that our librarian is saying that perhaps we can host some of those meetings from time to time. So yes, these events can be held in this very small room at the library, but we have to turn people away. They can be held at the community room that's on Main Street, but then that room is sometimes not large enough or has already been reserved for another event. So this does, as one of the people who wrote in said, give us another place to hold these events. That leads us to opportunity. And why are we taking this action now? This building is available, and it's part of Haslet's history. It's part of Haslet's past, and it can be saved. There's very little of early 1900s Haslet left that still exists. We honor Doc Gamble with a street name and a small park, and Doc Gamble bought this city out of receivership after the Great Depression. We have our city hall in the old Haslet Bank building. We used to have a WPA bridge in town, but we gave that to Keller and it's in their park now. So this is an opportunity to still hang on to a little piece of Haslet's past. And we are not talking about saving this as a church building. We're talking about saving the structure and using it for what will benefit our citizens now and in the future. We can restore this part of Haslet's history and provide additional space for our own departments right now that need them. So that's why I believe this is a good thing for the city to do. It also meets with our strategic plan. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, this is Mayor Pro Tem. So this project is under the quality of life. I'm getting feedback from someone.
Gary, would you mind turning your mic off, please, sir? We might get feedback there.
So this project is under the quality of life pillar in our strategic plan, and I can understand some of the attachment that has been and the sentiment regarding this building, but which I have not shared, but I understand where some of you are coming from that would like to see this preserved. And so I was willing to go along with it until we determined, okay, originally it was the church said it would like to donate. We initially thought the only expense would be finding a place to put it and moving it. But now that we've expended the funds to actually look under the hood, if you will, of, okay, what problems does this building have? What issues does it have? What would it take to bring it up to code to actually be able to use it for any use that for any public use? And to me, it is just gotten way too expensive for anything that it could be of the uses we've thought of. If it were indeed free, I would say, okay, yeah, let's do it. But it's just simply way too expensive. There are other projects in quality of life pillar that we could expend this money on, I think, that would pay back to us and the city and the citizens more than this building. So I just can't support it at this cost.
Anybody else?
This is Councilmember Morrow. I did want to mention that I spoke to Gary Snow. He contacted me and wanted me to make sure I spoke in tonight's meeting that he feels it's a sound building, that he looks forward to having the opportunity to move it. He said the $25,000, he's like, you won't find that any cheaper. And he would even be willing to talk about, he said he wouldn't work for free. Those are the exact words. I won't work for free, but I feel this is an important project, and he wanted me to share that he feels it is structurally sound and won't have any problem moving. So I told him I would mention that at tonight's meeting. I just wanted to mention a couple of things about why I feel there are many reasons, practical reasons, to save this old building. And I did receive quite a few emails and phone calls, and I would be walking in the neighborhood and people come and talk to me about how it wasn't just a church, it was a lifeline, how the building was a staple for the city of Haslet. But I wanted kind of to bring up the opportunity that buildings can actually be opportunities for our future as well, that preserving them is not only can be beneficial to our community's culture, but also local economy. And some of the things that we discussed on the parks and the library could be events where we charge people. But I also know a lot of times, sometimes new businesses prefer old buildings. Old buildings attract people into our community. And I just feel there's so many unfulfilled new uses that we could repurpose and we could use it for. And to me, it's just a reminder of the city's culture, their complexity. And I think the citizens could benefit from us keeping it.
I'll jump in here before everybody else, before the last couple of folks want to comment. First off, I've been quoted in social media, and I want to clarify a couple of things because it was taken out of context. It's been reported on social media that the mayor said we could build a restroom, use the chapel for restrooms for the baseball parks behind the firehouse. And yes, I did say that, but what I said in its entirety was that information was shared with me by a citizen. I wanted to put it out there for the council to hear. And what I actually said was the building to be used for a concession stand and restrooms, not just restrooms. Shortly thereafter, I contacted the city administrator and asked him to check with the city engineer. And this is not a detailed estimate. I was just curious because also on our strategic plan is a new community center somewhere down the road. And I didn't specify any amount of money or any square footage, but what was reported back was a roughly 3,500 square foot building with a 1,600 square foot meeting area. And to recap here, the chapel is 1,800 square feet. This new community center is 3,500 square feet. And the price tag, the rough price tag, which, you know, if we were within a couple of $100,000 of this was a really rough, quick estimate. I certainly don't want to put any pressure on Travis, but that was $500,000. So if we're looking for overflow, we can have a brand new building based on this rough estimate that's twice the size of the chapel, and we've got a new building as opposed to starting over and having to try to remake this one. Don't mean to get into a contest here with any of the council members, but if I were to ask staff to give me a list of how you would like to see us spend $500,000, I would question that the chapel would be very high up on that list. I don't think it would be. So asking the staff to provide uses to me is yeah, it gives us some additional ideas on how that facility might be used, but I'm not sure if we're coming at it from all the right directions. So I'll be quiet. Anybody else have any comments, Harold or Jessica?
Yes, this is Harold. So for me, this is a complete waste of money. We've got so many other things that we could use the money for, like in the near future, we're going to need more fire trucks, another fire station. Right now, we need street repairs. If we were going to spend $500,000 on a building, we could use it on something that would benefit all the citizens, or more of the citizens, I think, like a recreational building or something like that, which could be multi-use for meetings and whatever. So the people that use the library right now, I'm not sure that this percentage is right, but I think it's around maybe 5 to 10% are citizens, and the rest are outside the city, like ETJ or Fort Worth. And Trish or somebody else could, or Barbara could give us real number on that, I'm sure. But a rec center, I think, might be more beneficial to more citizens that live here. So for me, this is just no way. It's way too much money for something that, and it's not just $500,000. It's going to be ongoing expenses, a lot more maintenance than a newly built building. Plus, well, any building, there's going to be utilities and that type of stuff. But an old building like this, that's a wood structure, it's just going to require lots of maintenance, paint, et cetera, et cetera. That's all I've got.
Jessica, do you want to, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Anything you want to add to the conversation?
I can appreciate and understand the wanting to save the chapel from a historical standpoint. The fact that we'd be keeping one of the few structures left as part of Haslet's history. I appreciate that. And I also understand pre-COVID that the chapel would have added to our space for the library and our park events. But I think at this point where we're at, now that we've reached estimates up at 500,000, I think for me, this is beyond realistic for what we can do. And what we could spend that money for would probably benefit more citizens overall if we use it for something else.
So Mayor, this is Mayor Pro Tem. I'm ready to make a motion.
Go ahead, sir.
I move that we respectfully decline the church's offer of the chapel to the city of Haslet. Yeah, that's it.
This is Harold, I second.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Warren Robb,
Aye.
Harold Williams.
Aye.
Jessica Clark,
Aye.
Tricia Hilborn,
No.
Tanya Morrow.
Nay.
Motion passes 3-2. 9B, hold a public hearing, discuss, consider, and act to approve ordinance 002-2021 to amend chapter 14 of the Code of Ordinances entitled zoning ordinance specifically related to section 4.2.5 H hotel entitled additional use standards. Is this you, Wes?
Yes, it's West Design.
You have it, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. The purpose of this amendment is to look at existing neighborhoods in the city and protect them from encroaching non-residential, predominantly auto-dominant uses, and primarily in this case, a use that has gasoline pump sales. The zoning ordinance currently allows any retail use within the city to have gasoline pumps, and states that they have to, I'm sorry, let me step back, that they're allowed any retail use within the city that's in the general commercial, they're allowed by right. And then in the neighborhood commercial zoning district, they're allowed with an SUP process. There are two development standards that are required with related to gasoline cells and pumps. And one is that currently they may not be allowed to be adjacent to the property line of a residential use. And then the second is that, and this is for any commercial or industrial use that's adjacent to a residential use, that there must be a masonry wall of 6 feet in height. The amendment that you have before you tonight would restrict any retail use to have that's immediately adjacent to a residential use to have gasoline pump cells. This doesn't affect a whole lot of properties within the city, but there are some residential uses that could experience a gasoline convenience store type use going immediately adjacent to residential use. Planning and Zoning Commission conducted their public hearing and recommended approval by a vote of 5-0. We've done all the public notices in the newspaper that are required for a text amendment like this, and I can answer any questions that you have.
Mayor, you're muted, Mayor. Sorry.
So much to remember. At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this ordinance?
Mayor, this is Gary Halsey. I have a comment to the ordinance.
Go ahead.
I think it's very good that this be implemented, but I also think there should be a distance specified along with this. I could envision, you have a residential area here, and as long as I had one lot separation, I comply with this new ordinance. There should be a, maybe 500 feet, 600 feet. I would suggest a distance be incorporated as well. Thank you.
Thoughts, Wes, Rob, anybody?
I'm still thinking on that one. I don't think I have any major concerns with implementing a distance requirement. You're going one step further, which again, the goal here is protect existing residential uses. I don't think I have any red flags if you wanted to instate a distance requirement.
Jim, any comments you'd want to make?
We're just trying to preserve the integrity of neighborhoods and not have any kind of onerous uses next to a residential neighborhood and in somebody's backyard. I have no issue with the distance requirement. That seems to be an added protection. I just don't know what number to choose.
Is it worth researching to see what other folks have done similarly? Or Rob, do you know off the top of your head? Are you familiar with any that have a distance requirement?
I don't have any information for you off the top of my head. Like Wes and Jim, I don't have a legal problem in putting in a reasonable distance restriction, but I don't have any information to offer you on what that distance would be.
Could you table it for one meeting so we can come do our research and come back with recommendations? Can you do that, Wes?
That's what I was going to suggest. Yes.
You can table it to the next meeting. We can have that information for you. And thank you, Mr. Halsey.
Table it or continue it? What's better, Diana?
Mayor, did you close the public hearing?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Probably not. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak for or against? Thank you. Yeah, at this time, I'll close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Diana, do you have a preference if we continue or table?
It's always best to continue the item so you don't have to have a motion to remove it from the table.
Okay, so if everyone's comfortable with that and you want to leave it this evening, then I would request a motion to continue this item to the next meeting, if that's enough time, Rob.
Sure, that's enough time to gather that information. And obviously, this is all up to council as far as what you want to do. You've had your public hearing, and if you want to approve it the way it is, you're certainly entitled to do that. If you want to delay it and receive this information, we will provide that for your consideration for the next meeting.
This is Harold. I move to continue it.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Warren Robb.
Aye.
Harold Williams.
Aye.
Jessica Clark.
Aye.
Patricia Hilborn.
Aye.
Tanya Morrow.
Aye.
Okay, on to 9C. Discuss, consider, and act to approve ordinance 003-2021, calling the May 1, 2021 City Council election and authorizing a joint election agreement with other Tarrant County political subdivisions and a contract for election services with Tarrant County elections. Ms. Diana.
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is our standard item we have calling the general election for the city of Haslet. And attached in the paperwork, there was also a sample joint election agreement from Tarrant County Elections, and who is the party that we usually contract with to conduct our elections. The cost will not be determined until we know how many entities are participating. And with that, I respectfully request that you approve that contract and call the May 1, 2021 election. Thank you.
Questions or comments for Diana or staff? If everyone's comfortable, anybody want to make a motion then?
This is Jessica Clark. I move to approve ordinance 003-2021, calling the May 1st, 2021 City Council election and authorizing a joint election agreement with other Tarrant County political subdivision and a contract for election services with Tarrant County elections.
Is there a second?
Mayor Pro Tem seconds.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion? Let's do a roll call vote. Warren Robb,
Aye.
Harold Williams,
Aye.
Jessica Clark,
Aye.
Patricia Hilborn,
Aye.
Tanya Morrow.
Aye.
Thank you. On to 9D. Discuss, consider, and act regarding ordinance 004-2021 to amend section 3.05.005 construction regulations of article 3.05 swimming pool construction regulations of the City of Haslet Code of Ordinances. Wes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. This proposed amendment's come to us because as we have these new developments that come into town, people are wanting to construct swimming pools in their backyards. And in 1994, the city adopted a setback requirement for swimming pools and all associated equipment to be 8 feet. That 8 feet is in some cases with the newer developments, a greater setback than the primary structure on the lot. So for instance, you've got some developments such as Laterra and Watercrest, Caraway that have 5-foot setbacks. So by imposing the 8 foot, which again is greater than the structure on this lot, we're creating a hardship with our setback requirement in the swimming pool section. So the goal of this amendment is to change the setbacks to meet the primary structure on that particular lot. Again, this has been brought to you based on a couple of applications we've already received in different developments, and I can answer any questions that you have.
Anyone have any questions or comments for Wes? Hearing none, anybody interested in a motion?
Yeah, this is Mayor Pro Tem. I'll move to approve ordinance 004-2021, amending section 3.05.005 of the Code of Ordinances.
Is there a second?
Hilborn, second.
Any further discussion? Let's do a roll call vote. Warren Robb,
Aye.
Harold Williams,
Aye.
Jessica Clark,
Aye.
Patricia Hilborn,
Aye.
Tanya Morrow.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. 9E, consider an act regarding a pre-development and professional services agreement with TM Sweetgrass LLC regarding the Sweetgrass Development PID number 8.
This is Rob Alamon's item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council again. Since we're in this format, I can't tell if the developer's online or their attorney. I'm guessing they probably are. Diana, do you know that?
I do see Corey Admire on the line.
Okay. And so I'll take the lead on this, but I just wanted to know if somebody was there in case there's questions or anything like that. So, Council, this is something you're familiar with regard to the other PID districts you've created in the past. First step in that process basically is this type of an item. This is the agreement with the developer where the developer escrows funds with the city to pay the city's consultant fees that the city incurs with regard to the negotiation and drafting of the PID creation documents. As you'll recall, there's been a proposal from the developer to do the Sweetgrass development, which is about 262-acre mixed-use development on the north side of Blue Mound Road. The next item on the agenda will actually be for you all to consider petition to create the PID, which the property owners have signed, and we'll get to that on the next item. So we generally, as the first item, enter into this agreement, as I said, to cover developer escrows the funds for the city's consulting fees. The form of this agreement is the same, basic same form of this agreement that you've used on the other PID districts in the city. The developer will deposit $20,000 escrow account to be used for those city consultant fees. In the event that escrow gets diminished to below $5,000, the developer will replenish funds up to the point where a total amount of $30,000 has been spent. And at that point, if more is needed, the agreement contemplates that the agreement will be renegotiated and amended. That's basically the way we've operated these other escrow agreements on the other PIDs. So the purpose of this is to so that the city will not be spending the city's general funds for its consultant fees for this PID development, which is at this point, council obviously hasn't approved. It's just been requested. PID district creation has been requested by the developer and not approved. So that's basically why it makes sense that the funding for those comes from the developer and not from the city's general fund at this point. So with that, staff recommends approval of this pre-development and professional services agreement between the city and TM Sweetgrass for the Sweetgrass Development PID 8. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. And at this point, I would also ask the PID subcommittee members, Mayor Pro Tem Rob and Councilmember Hilborn, and Corey and the developer, if they're online as well, if they have anything to add, please feel free to do so.
Anyone from Sweetgrass on the call that wishes to say anything? Okay, PID subcommittee, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, I just concur with everything Rob said. This is the same type of agreement we've had 7 other times. So we've done this before. We understand it. We had a lengthy meeting. This PID subcommittee did last week with the developer, P3 Works, our attorneys, and hashed out all of this. So I guess my message is it's just more of the same that you've seen before. Nothing new here.
Trish, anything to add?
I concur. Our city attorney has gone over this with a fine-tooth comb. Warren and I have both read this agreement, and it's the same agreement we've seen before. It's done the city well, and I concur. After our meeting last week, I feel comfortable. I feel comfortable making a motion whenever you're ready, Mayor.
Go ahead.
I move that the council approve the pre-development and professional service agreement between the city and TM Sweetgrass LLC as presented for the Sweetgrass Development PID number 8.
Is there a second?
Mayor Pro Tem seconds.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's do a roll call vote. Warren Robb,
Aye.
Harold Williams,
Aye.
Jessica Clark,
Aye.
Tricia Hilborn,
Aye.
Tanya Morrow.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. 9F, consider an act on resolution 001-2021, calling a public hearing to consider the creation of the Haslet Public Improvement District number 8 regarding the Sweetgrass development and authorizing required notice thereof.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As mentioned in the last item, this item is for the council to consider basically the acceptance of the PID petition and to call a public hearing in the future to actually create the PID district. So the Sweetgrass development as you recall, is Brett Pedigo and his group are the developers. But currently, property owners are Fort Worth Railroad Salvage and Khosrow Yazari and his wife. So they are the ones who have submitted the petition, which is the correct procedure at this point. They're the property owner. They submitted a petition to the city to create the PID district, and that was attached to your agenda packet. As you'll recall, and has been mentioned, the council appointed a standing subcommittee for PID districts, and we've met with the developer to work towards this PID creation. Pursuant to the PID statute, the council is authorized to create a PID district only after the governing body holds a public hearing on the advisability of the improvements, and notice of that public hearing has to be published as specified in the newspaper. Written notice must be provided as the act requires. So this proposed resolution will call the public hearing to create the PID, and in the public hearing to discuss the advisability of the improvements, the cost of the improvements, the boundaries of the district, method of the assessments, and the apportionment of the cost between the district and the city, and the other matters related to the PID creation. Resolution attaches the proposed notice that will be given as required by the PID statute, and directs the city secretary to publish the notice and mail the notices as required by the statute. So the developer, as you will recall, requested a schedule. Mr. Pedigo is, I think, closing on one of the properties here, in a portion of the property in February, and the other portion of the property in March. That's the plan. So they have asked for the public hearing to create the PID be held on March 1st, the regular council meeting on March 1st, and that's what the resolution provides for. So with that, staff recommends approval of this resolution to call the public hearing to consider creation of the PID and setting the date of that public hearing on March 1st, 2021, and authorizing the city secretary to publish the notices as required by law. I'm happy to answer any questions, and also, if anybody from the same group we had last time wants to add anything, please feel free to do so.
Any questions or comments for the city attorney?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Corey Admeyer. I just could not figure out all my technology with the question before, but I am on and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey. Council? Anybody from the PID subcommittee, Warren or Trish, that you want to add or comment on?
Mrs. Mayor Pro Tem, no, we've just done this before. This is just a procedure to have a public hearing. So I recommend everyone support it.
Okay, anybody want to make a motion then?
How about a public hearing? Is that already done?
Public hearing for what?
Oh, they're gonna have the public hearing on March 1st. That's what they're calling. So you'll have your chance on March 1st to comment on this.
The resolution schedules the public hearing for the 1st of March.
I'm sorry.
Mayor, this is Councilmember Hilborn. I'd like to make a motion. I move that the council, are we ready? I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Okay. I move that the council approve resolution 001-2021, calling a public hearing to consider the creation of Haslet PID number 8, setting the date for the public hearing for March 1st, 2021, and authorizing the city secretary to publish notice of the public hearing as required by law.
Is there a second?
Mayor Pro Tem seconds.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's do a roll call vote. Warren Robb?
Aye.
Harold Williams?
Harold?
Harold? Can you hear me, Harold?
Mayor Golden, I believe Councilmember Williams lost his phone connection, and he may be working on that right now. There he is now.
Harold, did you hear the motion?
No, I did not. Sorry. Can you make it again, whoever made it?
Diana, can you read the motion to us?
Yes, the motion by Councilmember Hilborn was to approve the resolution 001-2021, calling the public hearing to consider the creation of Haslet PID number 8 for March 1st, 2021, and authorizing required notice thereof be published by the city secretary.
And we're in the middle of a roll call vote. If you understood the motion, Harold.
Got it. Aye.
Okay, Jessica Clark. Thank you, sir.
Aye.
Tricia Hilborn.
Aye.
Tanya Morrow.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0. 9G, discuss, consider, and act to authorize advertisement of RFP 2021-003 Capital Improvement Program Community Park Upper Trail Crossing Replacement. Is this Travis?
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is part of the strategic plan. We are running through those projects as quickly as we can. This was actually kind of an easier one because the design of the tap trail, which I did, included the crossing of the creek. So basically took that same design, transferred it to the trail crossing, which is up by the railroad tracks, same size culverts, same size riprap, which is the big rocks. The only thing that was changed was those rocks are going to be grouted into place. So this is requesting advertisement of the project, and will be advertised to potential bidders and awarded at the March 15th City Council meeting. Be happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have any questions or comments for Travis? If everyone's comfortable with what's been presented, then I would entertain a motion.
This is Councilmember Morrow. I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
I move city council authorize staff to advertise and solicit bids for RFB 2021-003 Capital Improvement Program Community Park Upper Trail Crossing Replacement.
Is there a second?
Clark seconds.
Clark seconds. Thank you, ma'am. Any further discussion?
Can I get a question in before we vote?
Sure can. Go ahead.
This is Hilborn. Travis, just going to close our park down again, and do we know for how long?
I will close off that portion of the trail. Not sure on date, but I know that the contract does call for, I believe it was a 60-day timeline. It's just to place those box culverts in there.
A lot of really excited people in my neighborhood to be out in the park again, so I know I'm going to get that question.
Any other discussion items? Okay, let's do a roll call vote. Warren Robb.
Aye.
Harold Williams.
Aye.
Jessica Clark.
Aye.
Tricia Hilborn.
Aye.
Tanya Morrow.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. And folks on the call, there's a couple of green mics, so would everybody check your phones and make sure that you've muted yourself. We're getting some background noise. Thank you. 9H, discuss, consider, and act upon authorizing a project to convert the sand volleyball court in Community Park to a net sport hard surface. Travis.
All right, I'm scrolling to this real quick. So this project was authorized actually last budget year. It was to turn the volleyball court into a net court surface. We took the project to a couple contractors that we know and their bids said that they would be well over what was budgeted resources, which was $75,000 out of Fund 15. Just a quick recap of what Fund 15 is. That's the parkland development fees. For residential developments, it's $1,000 per dwelling unit to be paid at the time of building permit application. And for non-residential developments, it's $1,000 for every 10,000 square feet of building area, which is also paid at the time of building permit application. So the development that has taken place over the last couple of years, we'll be using those funds to pay for this, and were also the same funds that were used to pay for the new playground, which the chief mentioned opened up today. And when I left work today, I definitely saw a lot of kids on that playground. So getting back to the project, being over $100,000, that just wasn't going to work. So we came up with an idea that if we did it in pieces, maybe we could get that bid closer to budgeted resources. The first piece of that was turning the volleyball court into a hard surface, basically removing the sand, removing the drainage system, filling that with concrete so that it was basically a blank slab. The other thing that we needed to look at was the different court surfaces that were out there. I've contacted several. A lot of them have gone out of business due to the COVID, but I did get 2 quotes with that. There are 2. The paving is the easy part. Those are straight 3 quotes. We got those done. The hard part was the surface. So the 2 responsive people that provided quotes was Snap Sports. They ship you everything on a pallet. They number the pieces. They put the puzzle. It's basically a puzzle that you assemble. So Public Works personnel would assemble that, and that would include lines for. It was. What can't I think of the pickleball? There it is. Pickleball and a volleyball surface, and then a shortened doubles tennis surface. And I'll get to the tennis here in a second, because I know there were a couple comments on that. They gave us a price with tax included, but that would obviously be taken off due to the city tax exempt policy, but there would still be freight, so I just kind of left it at that $17,730. The other court surface is called VersaCourt. It does require professional installation, but the difference between the Snap Sports and the VersaCourt is that they could include the city logo in the center. That was one of their things that they had asked if that was something that Haslet may be interested in, and I said, well, throw out a proposal and let's see what it is. If you didn't want the city logo in that the price of the VersaCourt would be more than the Snap Sports surface. The only difference then being that Public Works would be installing it versus professional installation. So the staff recommendation is awarding the concrete portion to Anderson Paving for $19,490, and the VersaCourt surface for $27,520. And the reason for that is in line with the strategic plan of reaching out to the community. Having that logo there would, as Haslet does serve the larger community, it would remind people that they are in fact in Haslet. But we would like to authorize a total amount of $50,000 in event that freight rates change or there's another unknown condition that exists. With that, volleyball, I forgot about that. So the tennis courts, I looked it up again today. So the standard surface for a tennis court exceeds what is available in that volleyball court. It's basically the runoff area in the back of the court. So you could have a non-standard tennis court lines, which is what the Snap Sports surface has proposed. But it would have to probably be known that that's not a standard tennis court size. So that's the reason that tennis courts weren't considered there, and more of just the volleyball and pickleball court surface was considered. That way we don't have to install a new pad. We don't have to do a lot of excavation. Really looking to get this project in for under budget. Okay, with that, I will open it up for questions if you have any.
This is the mayor. I've got two. I thought our priority was number one for a tennis court, and you know, whatever the normal size. I'm not a tennis player. Whatever the normal size for a tennis court is, and it seems like tennis has taken a back court to whatever else, pickleball and whatever. At the present time, do we not have the ability for pickleball players to utilize the basketball court? Don't we have the lines there for pickleball?
Currently, their lines are there for pickleball and the basketball court. The multi-sport court surface would just provide for 3 sports in one, albeit tennis being non-standard there. So, but pickleball does use the basketball court at this time.
Okay, and I'm not advocating that we had to stay with that, but help me, counsel. But I thought our primary focus for this particular item was to change the volleyball court, the sand volleyball court, to a tennis court, and staying under budget is great. I think we all want to do that, but we're losing sight of what the goal was, I think, number one. And then number two, on that site, the sand volleyball court, you mentioned drainage being taken out. If memory serves me correct, we did have problems with drainage at some point, maybe not today, but we did have problems with drainage at the sand volleyball court. In fact, I could swear I remember David Rogers talking about the water taking some of the sand out of the sand volleyball court. So my question really, as I hem and haw here, is have we addressed any possible draining issues? Now, I can understand having to squeegee off the court so we can play, or waiting until it dries, but do you foresee that there's going to be a drainage issue with the way this is designed at the present time?
I don't see an issue. So the drainage issue that's at the sand volleyball court is that you want that sand to drain, and the drainage that's beneath it was getting clogged by the volleyball court sand. So it was never draining. That was kind of the problem. I believe it was right when I got here, I think 5 years ago, when they were working on getting that drainage system fixed. So that's just since we're going to a hard surface, it won't have the same drainage issues of a clogged system. It actually won't even need a drain system. It'll just pan right off.
And this is the mayor again. I'm sorry to hog this, but it looked to me in one of the depictions that I saw that were presented was, it looked like almost like a mat, like you'd see in a gym, or for me in a horse stall, maybe a very refined one compared to what I'm talking about. But do we get the same kind of bounce that we're looking for off of this surface that I don't know what typical / normal tennis court surface is, but I'm concerned that it might not give you the same feel.
My understanding from the manufacturer is that this is the new standard for tennis court surfaces, that the old clay courts are not really used much anymore, and these mimic the same effects as standard tennis courts or pickleball courts or volleyball courts. I actually have a sample in my office. It is kind of what you're talking about, like a mat. They sent me a sample of it.
Okay, I'm going to quit hogging the show. Council, anybody have any questions or comments here?
So Mayor Pro Tem, so how are the stanchions fixed then? Do they leave a cup in the ground that metal posts can be attached to, or how do you handle that?
As far as the nets go, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yes. So on the Snap Sport surface, we'd have to get our own net system. That was just the quote for the actual product itself. That's why we were asking for the extra funds in there. On the VersaCourt system, that does have an adjustable net system. So basically, if you wanted to play tennis, the net would be down. If you wanted to play volleyball, there'd be a crank that you could bring the net up. So that's the difference between those two systems. And we would get something similar with the Snap Sport surface, an adjustable net surface, so that you could play multiple sports on that court.
It would just seem to me that you'd want to incorporate that into the concrete work that was done. Leave a receptacle or something where a post could be attached, or I can't imagine you're going to attach a post to that overlay.
No, it would actually be better to pour the concrete so that you maintain the structural integrity across it so instead of leaving a rebar cut out, you'd actually just cut the rebar where it was with the coring machine.
Okay, understand.
Mayor, this is Hilborn. I favor the idea of having this professionally put in so that you would take it that they would be responsible for the outcome. But I agree. I'm wondering how much more would it cost us to go ahead and expand that slab so that we can make this an actual tennis court size? I mean, how far are we off? Are we off? Are we talking about doubling the size? Because I think that really the goal that we had established was to make it usable for our tennis players, and they might not care, but if they go play somewhere else, then their swing's going to be off because they're used to playing in a different dimensional court.
So what the area that is the volleyball court is 42 feet by 72 feet. That's the current dimensions. For a standard tennis court, you need 60 feet by 110 feet. So it's significantly bigger to have that overrun area. I mean, the court itself is only 36 by 78, so it almost fits within that space, but it's that runoff area that causes the most extra concrete and basically would demo the entire volleyball area, put a new slab down, and start over basically, which we can do if we're directed that way.
What's the cost?
Does it include a fence around the outside of it?
Neither of these proposals included a fence. That was something that we did not seek at this time.
I used to play tennis a lot, and every court that I ever played on had a fence around it. Or else, non-professionals are going to be chasing balls more than they're playing.
I believe that's what pickleball does right now.
I was going to ask a question. What's the differential between what we're proposing and what would the full court tennis court along with that be?
I priced out a double court when I first started, and I believe it was $173,000. You could probably take off 50 of that, so probably $125,000 to get a single tennis court built from scratch, including fencing. There was some other cost in there, but I think in this area, yeah, you'd be probably safe with going 125.
This is Councilmember Moore. I'm a huge proponent of pickleball. I play all the time at the park, but I agree. I think that a tennis court was our goal for people to have a place to play as well. And then it could also be additional lines for volleyball and for pickleball. That's just a bonus. But I would like to see one tennis court actually put in that spot. And that's someone who isn't very good at tennis at all. But I know there's a lot of people that want to have that option in the park. And also going back to the surface, I know this is very different from sport court, is it not? It's got that bounce in it. This is the new and improved sport court. Is that correct?
Right. This is that springy surface.
I've heard really good things about anybody that's installed this. So I know it's a good quality surface.
Travis, have you talked to any surrounding communities or any tennis clubs or anybody who has used this surface? I'm not balking. We don't want to be a guinea pig for a new surface and find out that really avid tennis players don't like it. So if we're gonna go to the trouble of spending the money to put in a tennis court, want to make sure it's done well.
Sure. I just would check on the reviews on the site. I don't know of any local communities. I know they do a lot of private installations around the area, both Snap Sports and VersaCourt, because they have local reps. That's who I'm in contact with. But I can certainly reach out to see if they've had municipal installations.
I think we ought to bring it back with more information on it.
Travis, how much money is left in the Park Sports Fund? I mean, we accumulate it on a daily basis, but is there enough money to do the sports courts plus the tennis court?
That'd be a question for Marcy.
And why don't we get with Marcy tomorrow morning? And let's backpedal on this and see if we can't work in a tennis court and see where the money's coming from, okay?
I would suggest that we continue this item to the next meeting, if that gives you enough time, Travis. I know you've got, people that are waiting to hear on a bid, but it sounds like that's going to change dramatically anyway. So I would recommend council consider just continuing this to the next meeting, or if that's too soon, Travis, you let us know. But that would be what I would think would be a good plan. And Marcy can let us know where we stand financially. You can give us a better estimate on what it would cost for the full-size court.
This is Harold. I move to continue it.
Is there a second? I'm sorry, I couldn't understand.
This is Hilborn. I second.
Okay, Hilborn seconds. I couldn't hear the other person. Thank you.
I did have one more question, and it was just on the bid, if it's appropriate to ask. On the logo, that cost is $900, right? That's what that cost is for the logo. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
It's just a switch out of tiles in the middle.
So any thoughts on the logo? I would be fine with leaving the logo off. Yes, it looks nice, but again, I'm not the tennis player. Y'all tell me if you're a tennis player, do you normally see a logo in the middle of court?
Could I address council?
Who is
Kitty
this?
Wirtz. This is Kitty Wirtz at 205 Thistle Drive. And I've been a tennis player for over 45 years. I have never seen a logo on a tennis court. And I really think we haven't done our homework very well here, because most tennis courts have a painted surface. If you go to any high school, if you go to any other community park around the area, like in Keller and other places, it's all just concrete with a painted surface. I think we're trying to overbuild something, putting a lot of cost in, and I promise you, I don't think the tennis players are going to like a bouncy surface. We want to be able to hit that ball and let it go as fast as it possibly can. A bouncy surface is going to slow that ball down. I remember addressing council back last year when we had the extra funds in our budget, and I rallied for a tennis court. I am so very glad the community's finally focusing on one of our priorities. Our vision statement says that we're home of unique residential commercial opportunities in fostering wellness, safety, and civic engagement. Our community is growing. We need additional sports activities in our parks. And this was one area that I was very pleased. I'd actually like to see us use our funds fiscally appropriate, but I'd like to see 2 tennis courts actually be built if we could at all swing that. I mean, the funds here, I think, the community would be in favor of it. But I'm not in favor of a checkerboard surface, jigsaw surface going on the court. I don't think new tennis courts are being built that way. And this is going to be an outdoor court. How long is that going to last? I mean, there's a lot of questions here that still needs to be answered. And I'm glad we're tabling this issue for now so that we can go back and do more research. And maybe we'll have more comments after we learn a little bit more about it. Thank you.
Ms. Wertz. So help me out here. Where were we?
Mayor, we have a motion to continue this item to the next meeting from Councilmember Williams, and the motion was also seconded by Councilmember Hilborn.
Okay, any discussion? I'd like to throw in a couple things. In your estimate, Travis, if council's okay with this, I would recommend you look at one or two courts. Give us an idea what one court would cost, what two courts would cost. I'm assuming that's side by side, including a fence around, because I think that's what most of us are used to seeing with tennis courts. And if there's anything else that anybody wants to throw out as a way of direction for Travis and his research, and anything anybody else wants to add real quick?
Yes,
I'll just add. Sorry, we all
do. Okay, I'll go first. I would just like to add that I do like the fact that it's a multi-purpose court and you can paint other lines on it so that it can be used for multiple purposes. So I like that aspect of it.
Okay.
And I just want to throw in, if we can do the two courts, will they both still sit there? Or are we looking at not being able to do it at that same place? Or we do one there and one somewhere else?
Yeah, this is Mayor Pro Tem. I was thinking along the same lines. Remember, we have the property that was donated by Laterra, by the fire state, the future fire station over there in Laterra. So that could be used. You know, that might possibly require even more development, restrooms, that kind of thing. But you know, we will need to develop that probably someday. So, you know, maybe that day sooner than later.
Travis, you didn't have
Warren,
anything on your plate anytime soon, did you?
Warren, you're talking about the actual fire station site?
No,
For
the property next to the fire station site, where they took the dirt out.
But we did not accept that.
That's
Correct.
true. We declined the offer.
Yep, good point. Thank you. Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Going once, twice? Roll call vote. Warren Robb?
Aye.
Harold Williams?
Aye.
Jessica Clark?
Aye.
Patricia Hilborn?
Aye.
Tanya Morrow?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you all, and thanks for keeping me on track. 9I, discuss, consider, and act to excuse mayor and council absences. Anybody have any that you want to share at this time? Number 10, receive report from Public Improvement District Subcommittee. Rob?
Yes, sir. I'll be real brief. As we discussed earlier tonight, the subcommittee's been meeting with the developer team, Sweetgrass matter, to move forward with the action we took tonight, and also to be working on the next steps. So just so that you all know, we'll be bringing forward an agreement for your consideration with P3 Works, serve as PID consultant on this PID. And then the March 1st meeting, as you took action tonight, we will hold the public hearing called tonight to create the PID district, and then also to approve the preliminary service and assessment plan and call another future public hearing to actually levy the assessments for that PID. So you'll be having several items come forward on future agendas relating to Sweetgrass PID, and your subcommittee, your staff will be working hard with the developer team to make all that happen and keep all of that on schedule. So that was very brief overview, but subcommittee members and Mr. Quinn, is there anything else y'all want to add, please?
Mayor Pro Tem, you or Trish have anything to add?
The only thing is that we've all done this so many times now that I think we really work together well. And, this should be another good outcome to this matter for the city.
Nice chance, Trish. Anything you want to add? Okay, thumbs up. Thank you, ma'am. Number 11, executive session. Jim or council, I don't believe we have a reason to go tonight unless one of you does. Jim, anything that you?
There's no need for executive session.
Okay. 12, consider and take action resulting from exec. There is none. 13, anybody have anything for future agendas?
I do not, but I wanted to go back to our absences. Are we meeting on Tuesday due to President's Day on Monday, February
Yes,
16th?
That's correct.
Then I will
After the holiday.
not be present. I have a softball game.
Okay. Thank you for letting us know. Anybody else?
Let's talk about what to do about properties that have got just lots and lots of trash on them in some of our subdivisions. What are we going to do about them? Or what can we do about them to resolve these problems that have been going on for years?
We can put that as a discussion item. We can develop a report for you, Councilor Williams, the next meeting. I believe we're taking some action recently regarding one. We can certainly go through. I mean, Wes is over code enforcement now. He's really good at that, and we can come up with a report regarding properties that have become unkempt.
Okay. Anyone else have anything for future agendas? Hearing none, we're adjourned at 8:57. Thank y'all very much.
Have a nice evening. Thank you.
Night, everybody.
Everybody stay safe.